Hi, Catrina. I understand you will be the moderator, won't you?
Yes.
This
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it should be working by now.
All right.
It's a large stage. As you can see, it has a bit of an intimidating effect on our speakers, but I'm sure they will not be intimidated in the discussion. 39 minutes. Enjoy it. The stage is yours.
Hey guys, are we ready to talk infra? All right, let's do it.
There you go.
Well, by way of intro, my name is Catrina. I co-lead the blockchain club at Penn Blockchain, and also I work at Protocol Labs on the venture growth team. And today, we have 4 esteemed guests from top projects in the base layer / L1 space. And yeah, let's kick it off by having them introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Raza.
Thanks. I'm Raza. I'm the regional lead for Europe for Developer Relations Polygon. Primarily focused with onboarding developers, helping them build, helping early stage projects, and helping builders become founders. That's my main focus.
Hey, I'm Adam. I'm co-founder at Aleph Zero, and I'm a mathematician and cryptographer by education. I deal mostly with general direction of what we do, and right now with advisory in our ecosystem and grant program.
Yeah, hi, I'm Zoe. I'm the Senior Business Director at BNB Chain. So I'm managing the Europe region growth, including the Europe Incubator Program and also the Global Grants Program. So I've been working with Binance for around 4 years and managing across like NFT, fan token, charity, fiat, and also work at Binance Labs before. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, I'm Marko. Currently, I'm the Cosmos SDK lead and also the tech lead of the Builders program. You may have seen the talk 2 talks ago from Owner. I've been a protocol engineer on Tendermint, working on the consensus layer and working on the application layer, and currently trying to build the next evolution of what Cosmos can be.
Awesome. Well, following the intro, let's do an exercise to get all of us know more about your chain. So all of you interact a lot with the Web3 developers, and I'm assuming a lot of, we have a lot of builders or future builders in the audience. So 2 questions to you. Number 1, from talking to founders, what are the top criteria when it comes to selecting a chain for people to build on? And second of all, following that framework, how would you pitch your chain to a new dev? Well, let's actually start with Cosmos.
Awesome. So how would I pitch the Cosmos ecosystem? So what founders are actually looking for, and what we've seen in the Builders program, is they're looking a quick way to go to market, and they are seeing, many times they're seeing blockchain as a back-end component to their product and not as the front and center part of their product. And so in this sense, they want to be able to have low maintenance costs, but high reliability in development and in their chain. And like how I would pitch Cosmos is, well, out of the three chains up here, 2 of them actually already use Cosmos. So that's already a testament. There's teams looking to join Cosmos because of that reliability, because of that correctness in the consensus layer and the ease of use of the Cosmos SDK itself. Those 2 chains are Polygon and BNB.
Yeah, so I will pitch BNB Chain in 4 points. So first, user acquisition. So all startups want users, right? So BNB Chain is the #1 in terms of daily active user. We have more than 1 million daily active user. The definition of daily active user is the user need to be interact with the smart contract on a daily basis. And also, we are the second in terms of TVL. We have more than 5 billion TVL on BNB Chain. So actually, even on the DeFi side, we're also very advanced in terms of that. So BNB Chain actually have the Twitter follower more than 2 million, and we have community all over all continents, all across the world. So basically, if you want to promote your project to more users, especially crypto users, and this is the best chain to do the marketing. The second part is the tech availability. So we're EVM compatible chain, so it's using Solidity, so it's easy to develop. And also we're designing a very comprehensive application layer for building, including ZK and the sidechain I can describe later. The third part is actually a support program we have. So we have the grants, we have the gas fee incentive, we have the token advisory, we have the infra 360-degree check. We also can help you shape your go-to-market strategy. So all the things we are and also connect with all the ecosystem partners we have. The fourth point is actually we have very deep collaboration with the whole Binance ecosystem. So we help you connect with top partners like CMC, like Trust Wallet, or other Binance business. So, and one successful example. So today there's an announcement on Binance.com, say Hooked Protocol will be the next on Launchpad. So Hooked Protocol is actually originated on BNB Chain, and it is invested, it's cultivated by BNB Chain team, will give a lot of support. They get invested from Binance Labs, and they will be on a Launchpad in 1 week, so being listed on Binance. So this is the roadmap, or like what we want to looking forward to, more good top crypto projects on BNB Chain. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I think we are in a bit different position than the other chains here because we are a bit earlier on our road. So answering the first question, which is what the founders are looking for, I think contrary to perhaps popular opinion that the chain which is giving the biggest grants is going to win the most teams, I think teams are actually looking more for support right now than non-financial support, meaning advisory, marketing support, legal support, and such. And that's what we are very much trying to provide. Being still pretty early, it's way easier in our chain to for example, meet with the founders and to talk the idea through. And what we are seeing also is that a lot of teams are seeing a big opportunity in being one of the first teams in, let's say, new world that's opening. So I think in other more mature chains, it's pretty much established which is the best decentralized exchange, what is the best lending protocol, and it's pretty hard to find the space for your project unless it's very intricate DeFi instrument. So in this newer chains, it's still pretty much unresolved, and it's usually what you can see historically is that the first good teams which came to the ecosystem basically stayed there and established good products. So I think in our situation, this is what we see right now a lot. People seeing the opportunity of being one of the first ones. And why should they choose our chain? Well, the support I just mentioned is definitely one of the reasons. But also, I think we give an opportunity to experiment with a lot of new technologies. One of them is Rust and in general and WebAssembly, which is not all that common. And it's actually much easier to use than people usually think, because, for example, it inherits a lot of tooling from general Rust ecosystem, which is very well prepared. And the other thing is that we are right now focusing mostly on privacy. So naturally, if the teams are interested in building privacy-related applications, then we're going to be providing a lot of support in this regard.
Yeah, so maybe like I think that a lot of the points I could like reiterate, but maybe taken from a different angle. And starting with the second part is, why would you opt for a blockchain? I think that the journey with, as a developer, when you start and you choose, a blockchain, I think that it's very important for you to understand that what's the reason why you would opt for a blockchain. Obviously, Polygon has this position where we opt to provide, cheaper gas fees, scalability. But you need to make an assessment that the ecosystem that you're going to choose is growing as well. They're building as well. So for instance, we're going hard on our ZK products, and not only on our EVM, but also if you look at Polygon ID, which basically allows you to exchange or verify data and information without actually sharing the underlying data itself. And I think that when you choose a chain, that's very important, that how strong is the ecosystem itself. If you look at building social applications, well, Lens protocol obviously is on Polygon. So I think that when you opt for a chain, and when you choose a chain as a developer, it's very important to understand understand the ecosystem and what are the benefits that come to you. So I think that Polygon has positioned themselves very, very strongly, where if you would opt to build, you know that we're going to be try to be at the forefront of, let's say, technology and delivering on our promise and committing to that on a scalable solution, making sure that, we bring Ethereum to the world. So I think that what a founder looks for, well, it's actually, again, very much building on what's been said before. You might think that you know, money plays a big role, and it does. You know, raising is a huge topic, but it becomes much more than that. When you transform from a builder to founder, or as a founder you want to go to the next level, it's about, can you get connected in the ecosystem? How do you, you know, often when founders approach us, it's, hey, we need, and I won't mention names, can we get connected to a partner? Yeah, sure, we'll take care of that. Go-to-market strategy, whether it's onboarding users, how do you do that? And I think that, you know, not to shill, but I guess like our BD department is doing an awesome job at that, where, you know, the track record of a chain will speak for itself as well. You know, if not necessarily, you shouldn't necessarily follow big brands blindly, but there is a trend to say, and I think that, you know, when you look at, for instance, the way big brands move and how they position themselves, we very much help them with that as well. Like, how do you tell the story and narrative? For a founder, when they build their amazing project, you know, often you see on the landing page, permissionless and, you know, decentralized. But, you know, users, you know, don't resonate necessarily with those words. So it's giving advice on multiple levels, and you need to make sure that the ecosystem that you go for is able to provide that. And also from another angle, like maybe you don't know how to set up a KYC properly. So I think that I'm very proud to say that with Polygon, we've found a way to help our founders in such a way that product market fit is another thing, but scaling goes through many dimensions, and technology is vitally important at the core. It's where we move as Web3 super fast. But I think that the non-technical side is what allows a lot of founders to be successful as well, and definitely Polygon plays a huge role in that.
Wow, lots of amazing insights. Also, it's not easy to be L1. You have to hit the technical excellence, you have to build the community. And one thing I would add is, and this is something me and Raza discussed yesterday, it's really important to fill the two-way feedback loop. So, you know, L1s also want to hear from all the devs on what are experiences, like what are the pain points, so they can, you know, give it back to their product team to make the experience better holistically. So let's definitely do that. Shifting gear a little bit, something topical is modular blockchain. I think you all might have heard Celestia, just a lot of the modular design, and a lot of the L1s on our panel actually are shifting towards that blockchain design. Why don't we actually start with Cosmos, as they're, you know, truly one of the pioneers in the space. Tell us, what is this modular blockchain thesis? What's the benefit of it? And why should we care?
Yeah, so the idea of modularity, if you ask someone like Zaki, is basically, if we were to redesign Cosmos today, this is exactly how it would be. And what the idea there is that right now, to spin up your own chain, to launch a smart contract, you have limiting factors. In launching your own chain, you have the limiting factors of validator coordination. In launching a smart contract, you have the limiting factor of the chain you are deploying your contract on. With the idea of modularity is you're separating the execution environment from the underlying consensus protocol. And what does this really enable? It really enables a quicker go-to-market, because you are not limited behind these other limiting factors of large validator sets and the underlying execution environment. And then also, the settlement of your chain is entirely decided on by you. So currently in the L1 and L2 space, there's Ethereum and things like Optimism and Arbitrum and various other designs. And all these are settling and doing data availability on the Ethereum main chain. But the problem here is these two things don't actually have to be coupled. They can be entirely separate. So you can use the settlement layer, the thing that secures the data and verifies the data, saying that this is true, this is correct. You can say that is something else. You can say that is a company. You can say that is a different blockchain, the Cosmos Hub. You can say it's Osmosis. You can say it's Polkadot. You can say it's whatever. But the data of the underlying execution can live elsewhere. And that is what Celestia is aiming to offer, or will be offering, in the sense that the data lives somewhere else, and it doesn't have to be the limiting factor of when you're deploying your own chain. And it kind of goes back to like this idea of like the interchain, and it's like this interconnected world of blockchains. And it's changing the paradigm of having to launch your own chain. And if you've launched your own chain, you know the headaches that you end up going through, and reducing that. But also, like when you launch a smart contract, like I said, like if your application begins to scale, what is your other option? It's to launch a chain. But now there's a new third and simpler option, and that is the space of rollups.
Yeah, so for BNB Chain, okay, let's imagine a chart. So there are 4 points, 1, 2, 3, 4. So BNB Chain was previously called, there's a Binance Chain. So now it's renamed as Binance Bitcoin Chain. So this is the governance layer of the whole BNB Chain system where all the validators points are on this point. And then there's a main chain, the BNB chain here. So this is where people build the dApps on all the things, like almost all the dApps you're seeing is building on BNB chain. So on the left side, we're adopting the ZK BNB, so which is the ZK rollup for BNB chain. So this is the way that we could reduce the transaction cost and increase the speed, and with the verification that we see a lot of needs from like SocialFi, GameFi projects. And on this side, there is a Binance BNB sidechain. So basically, the effect of a sidechain is actually you're trying to build your own ecosystem. So you want to control, or like you want to set up the rule for how the tokens are validated, and how the ecosystem to build. Like you are building your own ones is the sidechain. Yeah. So these are the 4 parts of the modular design for the current BNB chain.
Yes. Yeah, so obviously Polygon not blind to where the space is moving, also dealing with modularity. So I think modularity is very interesting because if you look at how blockchains were built, it very much reminds me, it's very tight coupled. And then with modularity, obviously, like, you know, as Marko explained, like you pull it from each other, and you have different layers that interact with each other and, you know, act almost independently. So I think that for me, it reminds me of how you used to have a DVD player and you have a DVD. So the data relies on the DVD, but it's a single use case. And you know, you put it in a DVD player and you can play that movie. And then along came like hard drives, and you could abstract away, and then depending on the software, you can interact with that hard drive. And I think similarly, when you look in the modularity, blockchain modularity space, that's happening. And with Polygon Avail, to put it simply, we're focusing on the data layer, where we're allowing data storage to happen, and then that layer acts independently for it to interact with different layers. I think that's the take where Polygon is focusing right now.
Yeah. No. Also, just add, it's always a spectrum. There's no, dichotomous opposite of your monolithic versus your modular. You can always shift one way towards the other, and just the evolutionary nature of L1s as a base layer. All right. The next topic I want to tee up is another hot one. A lot of media attention. Zero knowledge, ZK. So the origin of the word is actually a cryptographic method of proving a statement without actually revealing details around it. And in the blockchain context, there are actually 2 use cases where a lot of people actually intermingle. One of them is for privacy, and then the other one is more for scaling. So I think today, why don't we start with Adam to actually talk more on the privacy application of ZK and how Aleph 0 leverage that, and then we'll shift over to BNB and as well as Polygon to talk about the ZK EVM rollup.
Okay, so maybe I'll start with a slight introduction of idea. So what ZK proofs, or usually ZK snarks, are used. What they are doing is they allow to compress a very big computation to a very small proof that is very fast to verify. And this proof also doesn't contain actually data from the computations. For example, we may have 10,000 off-chain transactions which are private. We can compile a very short proof that all of them were correct, and then the blockchain will only verify that these transactions were correct. So this is what the rollups are doing, basically. They additionally need to publish some data, but I don't want to go into details. And there are two ways you can actually use it. First is the compression part. So this is what the rollups are the most interested about, because it helps with scaling. And the other thing is the privacy part. This is what we are mostly interested about, because we're building a privacy framework which is dubbed liminal. So what it will allow to do, and actually, by the way, we are just starting the hackathon where the liminal is making its debut, so anyone who wants to experiment with it, it's invited. So what it does, it allows to write smart contracts in a way where users can keep their secrets. For example, their account can be their secret, and they can interact with the blockchain without revealing their secrets, but only proving that whatever they do is according to some rules. So the basic primitives which can be implemented with this are private transfers, obviously, but you can add additional checks, for example. So, for example, you may have a private transfer with proof that it's not touching any of the blacklisted addresses. Or you may implement something which is called travel rule, which means that whenever the transfer is above some specific quota, then it cannot be private. So the private transfers only below some specific amount. So this is basically what we call liminal 1 or ZK liminal, and we're actually planning to enrich it with yet another primitive which is called multi-party computation, which allows not only for users to store their secrets, but also for smart contracts to store their secrets. And that's a generalization which, for example, allows to deploy a decentralized exchange with its internal state kept private. This is something that we are already working on, but it's not even on our devnets yet, so I mean, there needs to be some wait for that. But as I said, the ZK part is basically operational on the devnets and can be experimented with on the hackathon.
Yeah, well, before we move on to the scaling part, to abstract away from the technical side, what are the tactical, tangible use cases that you think will be unlocked by ZK in the privacy setting? So one thing I can think of is probably payroll, because you don't want everyone to see who's getting paid what. So that's one use cases. Any other example from the panel, or to demonstrate the privacy use cases?
So, for example, private governance is something which I think is very much needed. So right now, all the DAOs that exist basically are fully public, not because people want it so, but because there are no technical means of making it other way. I mean, in a classical world, the votings are private for a good reason, and the result is revealed only after the voting is finished. It's right now impossible to implement on blockchain this way. So I think this is the road that is very important. This is the use case that's very important, besides the obvious, which is private transaction and private DeFi.
For sure, definitely a growing space. All right, let's talk about scaling use cases. Do you want to start, Raza?
Well, yeah, I think that another exciting part of zero knowledge is that it allows you to, so with ZK rollups, it allows you to increase the throughput. So we spoke about it yesterday as well. Something I often tell is that one of the main critics of a blockchain is that it cannot rival credit card speeds. A traditional system like a Web2 backend, it's much faster, the throughput is much higher, and this was one of the, let's say, limiting factors that we had in the Web3 space. Along came zero knowledge, and I think that I'm super excited about how fast the space is moving as a whole. And some of the use cases you can imagine is that anywhere where you need a throughput, an increase in throughput, it will benefit. Honestly speaking, and I know it's the too generic answer, I think it will benefit the space as a whole. Because I can imagine that at some point you will see zero knowledge being the standard. But looking at DeFi space, I mean batch processing. So essentially, abstracted at a very high level, you could say it's batch processing. You can imagine that when you can process a lot more transactions, it will benefit DeFi platforms. So I think that's definitely the use case where you see it, blooming. I think the games, if you look at games and the way the interactions happen, where it can be very fast-paced, definitely think that zero knowledge will have a huge role to play for games as well.
Yeah, okay, let's have a scenario example. So for example, I want to build a game. And I want to build soulbound token for each action my users do. Okay, I claim the land, I battle, I win, I get NFT. So each getting NFT on chain is a minting process. So if I have 10,000 users per day and they all mint NFT like 10 times, it's like 100,000. Like if like one transaction fee, for example, is 0.1, so it's 10,000 costs on the chain. So, but with ZK rollup, you actually can make this much cheaper and on this. So this is actually a better way to engage users if you're a very large scale game. And another one is, yeah, I agree, like it's like a speed. So basically if you want to build an AMM on layer 2, so you want better liquidity, fast speed, so like the accuracy and the slip rate is actually optimized. So then DK will also help on that. So, on BNB Chain side, we have the ZK BNB, and we will see very soon. And so this one actually, it's actually ZK BNB will publish all the transactions from the layer 2 all to the BNB chain. So you will see how there's a way you could validate the transactions, but actually you can increase the processing speed, you can lower the cost. So it's as a good way to scale up your business if you're considering a large-scale user adoption. Yeah.
Super cool. And Marko, you mentioned some use cases at Cosmos and projects building in ZK, so take it away.
Yeah, I think like all the use cases are like incredibly valuable here, and I think ZK is kind of like how I've been looking at ZK is like we were kind of like in this like circle of like rinse and repeat of different of the same project with minor changes, and it's like DeFi this, DeFi that, NFT this, NFT that. You change some metrics, some like parameters, and all of a sudden you get a new protocol. But it's like this is kind of getting kind of stale, it's kind of getting boring. But the exciting thing that's like coming out and it's like going to do this like huge paradigm shift is like the world of ZK. And like within the Cosmos space, there's already like 3 teams. One of them's getting ready to launch. I want to say like in 2 weeks. But there's Anoma, which is like a private bartering system, and they have another chain that's called Namada, which is a multi-asset shielded pool for the Interchain. So basically any chain that uses IBC now has access to zero knowledge. There's Penumbra, who was founded out of one of the lead cryptographers from Zcash, and their focus is like private DeFi. And now it's like DeFi again, but again, it's like the use cases for blockchain enter a whole new level when we get this new technology. And then within the Cosmos space, like we're working on how to make our protocols, the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint, more Snark friendly, more Stark friendly, to enable more use cases and more users to take advantage of this technology.
Well, that's awesome. The most beautiful thing, at least to me, about Web3 is like you kind of never stop learning and just like so much happening every day. And even before yesterday, I actually didn't know BNB had a ZK EVM, which is super cool. So, going along that vein, 2 questions. Out of your chain, out of your ecosystem, what excites you the most about the direction you're going, whether it's a new feature or it's a new sort of strategic initiative? So that's question number one. And number two, for the industry as a whole, what brings the next billion users, to Web3? Like, what are the kind of killer use cases you're most excited about, even abstract away from your own chain? So number one, what excites you about your chain? And number two, what excites you about Web3? Let's pick. Adam, you want to start first?
Okay, so starting with the first question, what excites me the most? Definitely that's multi-party computation, MPC. That's very much uncharted territory. No one have ever deployed it in a blockchain scenario yet. And it allows to do things that are not possible to do without it. So, this is obviously super exciting. We are working on it. Of course, it's going to take some time until it hits the mainnet. But I'm excited even to see the benchmarks and the test results that we're conducting right now. But when it comes to a thing which is going to bring the new billion, new billion users, I think I'd like to point to something different, but it's also privacy related. So I think it's more of a legal challenge, or I think legal of sorts. Private stablecoin or like non-fully public stablecoin is something that doesn't exist, and I think it would bring massive adoption among the folks which are not using blockchains right now. Of course, it's very problematic from the legal standpoint. There is still some work to be done on the part of selective reveals and proving to the regulators that we are not committing any kind of frauds, or we are not related to any previous hacks. These are things that are technically possible to be solved. So, and the use case is obviously very tempting, and I think that's something which would bring perhaps even a billion.
Exciting. Polygon.
Yeah, that's. I really love the question. Let me just start with the Polygon part. I think that coming back to scaling in with zero knowledge and privacy zero knowledge. Obviously, we launched our Hermes testnet in Bogota. Super excited. We're getting early stats. And I think it's mentioned by the panel as well. I think across the board, it will change for scaling applications. Super excited what's going to be built on that and what's going to come out of that. Maybe a specific use case on the privacy side, we have Polygon ID. It's a ZK solution and a zero knowledge solution, which basically, like, without going in depth, because without a slide it's just too difficult to follow, it's a way for you to verify that you're over 18, for instance, without actually sharing your date of birth. And with a ZK proof, then an application can verify, hey, you are over 18 and you actually never shared your passport or your driver's license. And we're really making gains and steps in that direction. And I'm already seeing at hackathons, like this kid, 16 years old, built his own retail application, integrated Polygon ID, connected to a Raspberry Pi, and that connected to a vending machine. And then basically by scanning his Polygon ID, he couldn't, let's say the vending machine wouldn't open because he's not 21 yet, so he couldn't get the alcohol, so that the beer out of the vending machine. So I think I'm super excited to see what's going to be built with Polygon ID. I think for the space, Adam mentioned it, like the next billion users. I think maybe a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I think that for mass adoption, we all know the UX UI issues that most platforms are facing, especially for like people coming from Web 2 or audiences. But also, let me point out something that my boy Rahed last week in Dubai did a talk on, Rahed Codes, and he talked about wallets and how it's actually, for us crypto native, Web3 native people, it's annoying sometimes to deal with wallets, private keys, seed phrases, etc. But it's next to near impossible for people coming out of the space. So things like social recovery, making sure you're able to freeze your assets. Right now, it's almost like, in Dutch we say cursing in the church, like it's blasphemy saying these kind of things. But we're gonna need to have these solutions where you do a social recovery, you're able to freeze your assets, and there are things in the ecosystem happening. I won't call them out, but there are things in the ecosystem happening which I think that is going to be super beneficial. Yes, it might be a more centralized approach. It might be not fully conforming, let's say, our Web3 culture and the ethos, but I definitely think that these solutions are necessary that at least give you the option. For instance, there is a wallet provider, again, I won't mention name, I'm not sure if they would like it, but there's a wallet provider where you can sign up with an email address, it creates a wallet on the spot, but it also allows you to move assets from that wallet to your own wallet. And if you don't, then fine, they manage your private keys for you. If you do, great, you're still able to interact. And from a user experience, you come on a platform, you just log in with your email address, you pay with a credit card, and then you've got your NFT or whatever you want to do. And then the second thing I will mention, and then I'll pass it on, is I do quite a bit of talks, and in some of the questions I get, when will NFTs become big? Well, when we will stop calling it NFTs. I think a lot of the terminology is so loaded, and I think that it's public knowledge. I read it, they launched and they call it digital collectibles, super smart. They stayed away from calling it NFTs. So I think that once we tell the story and narrative in a way where we drive value and make the user experience not only from a design and color perspective, but interaction perspective, wallet interaction, we improve that. I definitely think that that's what I'm excited about for in the space that's happening, and then we'll see definitely the mass adoption happening.
Yeah, I really want to echo what Raza said. That is how we get the next people in. We've all become complacent to the horrible UX of blockchain, and it's we deal with it on a daily basis, and it's kind of it's we have to stop being so complacent and start asking the questions on how do we make it easier, and there is that saying it should be as easy as using a bank, but bank UX is worse than blockchain UX. We shouldn't aim for that. We should aim for it to be as simple, but as adopted as banks, but even simpler than banks. And I think that's what really brings in the next people, because if we look at the past 2 weeks, what's going on in crypto, and I bet most people here have gotten messages from their friends saying, hey, is everything okay? Because of FTX and these various exchanges and what's been going on. But it's how do we fix that problem? Well, let's fix the UX problem and make it as though you're using a centralized entity, but behind the scenes, you're entirely decentralized. And so that's the biggest thing that's not only we're talking about in Cosmos with a bunch of UX people, but also what we should be focusing on as an industry to get the next wave of people. And then on top of that, a bunch of zero knowledge stuff too.
By the way, and then building on top of that, I think that what banking apps started to do is educate their users on their bad UX, having these commercials and say this is how you use it. This is we should also definitely not start doing that. Hey, this is what gas fees are, and this is why you need to pay gas fees. No, we need to stop that. We need to don't necessarily explain to the bulk of the people what are gas fees, why do you need it. The way I would usually even describe gas fees is hey, you have an Apple account, you have a monthly subscription, right? So they basically determine that monthly fee based on the individual interactions you have, and on a blockchain you pay as you go, so to say. But then I started to realize okay, it's all for some people clicked it, and for some people it was still why but why? So I think that gas, for instance, gasless is another definitely way to go for user experience, which is going to be vitally important. But yeah, I really like what you said, bad UX, and then educating people on how to use bad UX is it really reminds me of these commercials we have in the Netherlands. It's oh, we launched a new app and this is how you use it, and you're why?
Yeah, so I think the exciting part of the whole industry is actually we see more and more real application case for blockchain. So blockchain is a technology and it really needs to be useful. So Web2, Web3, it's not every business want to be Web3, but it's really have some trigger point for industry to move into Web3. Web3 is critical. So some use case example. So game. So why there is a huge trend on gaming to turn to Web3 is because in Web3, the NFT itself is actually usable in different games instead of one game. So for example, you have a character, you play in this game as an NFT. So it has a high level and it's great. And actually, you're using the NFT, if it's on the same chain, you can use this into other games as long as they agree. So the data accumulated, so it's actually easy to transfer the assets you have in one system to other. So similar things, including to the carbon credit, like the ESG part, and also the other parts. So those examples are really critical to see how they grow. So on BNB Chain side, some very important initiatives. So we have the Binance account bond token, which is a form of SOL bond token. So we see actually, yeah, people say, yeah, you could create like a 1,000 wallet, one person, because there's not KYC. So basically using this verification mechanism, so as long as they're past the restrict KYC on Binance, they can generate token on BNB Chain. So we know this wallet is a verified KYC user. So for all the applications, no matter they're SocialFi, DeFi, GameFi, they can actually see, okay, this is a verified user. Although there's no KYC information will be disclosed, but they can verify this is user. So BNB Chain is really advantage at scaling up all those innovative solutions. And at the same time, we're trying to finding new solutions in the industry to grow. So so that's it, yeah.
Awesome. Well, actually, for the last question of the panel, I want to spice things up a little bit. Let's talk about contrarian view. And Raza, you kind of gave away your contrarian view. Now you got to think about another one. But I guess I'll give some time. Let's start with Cosmos. Like, what are some of the things you don't think people necessarily agree, but you believe wholeheartedly, hence contrarian?
That's a good question. Makes me think for a second.
Okay, we can move to Zoe first, maybe?
Yeah, what kind of contrary are you referring to? So like what kind of scope of the contrary?
So for example, I will give my contrarian view, which is probably very contrarian. For the next wave, I'm actually more excited about data, well, hence I'm at Protocol Labs, than some of the other traditional, like last sort of DeFi summers type of use cases, because my take is Web3 is about sovereignty, and there are different types of sovereignties. So we have financial sovereignty, which is probably one of the reasons we had a DeFi summer and a lot of this intermediation of the financial services industry. But there's also the other side of data sovereignty, as in what if I can monetize my own data rather than having the big tech to monetize on their own, and what if I can do data DAOs and data NFTs and store as a service and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of my contrarian view. I'm very bullish on other use cases in the next wave. So yeah, as example.
Okay, I have a couple approaches. So on a technical point, on a very like technical consensus level, there's been a lot of hype on randomized leader election. So who the next proposer of a block is. I think predictable proposer selection is actually a lot more useful and a lot more cooler with the use cases you can build from it. Secondly, like I think to go back to your point, it's like, what did this evolve out of? Like, what is the ideology of like why we're all here? Like, why do we all stick through it? Like, we could have all gone to like Google or something and gotten like multi-million-dollar jobs, but like, why do we stick through like public good core technology? And that's because the ideology of the people who like first started this and like why it was first invented. And a big reason why I live in Berlin. And I think with that, it's like these like microcurrencies within communities is like a very interesting use case for blockchain for enabling smaller communities to have their own currency and have their own ecosystem outside of like the global market. And this is something that one of our sister companies, Informal, is like putting a lot of effort towards, and they're already working with small communities within Canada to already use the Cosmos technology for this. So it's like a bit contrarian from like, oh, we're like trying to build like the next like billion users. It's like we're trying to actually like solve a potentially like real world problem that people are experiencing today with the technology that's available today.
Love it.
Yeah, so yeah, I can also give an example of how like cryptocurrency is actually very applied in the real world. So actually, I also worked at Binance Charity before, and I went to Uganda. So we conducted a pink care token. So we designed this token to represent the hygiene care a token equals 1 month hygiene care for a girl. So like we actually deliver it through the Trust Wallet to different users. So using this way to make the donation transparent from the top to the end. So you see how the money comes, so we don't charge any in the middle fee, different from other traditional organizations, and make sure that all the funds going through and to the end beneficiaries. And you see the token from end beneficiary to the vendor, so they know okay who went to whom, and then the vendor will give the distributed goods to people. And this also applied to the launch for children, other stuff. So they're all on our BNB chain. So those kind of examples. And in terms of data, I think, yeah, so the interesting part is actually people know the data, like privacy is important, but actually no one have the real control in Web 2. So you see the cookie, accept or reject. So most people say accept, but like, because you have no idea you don't read all the stuff. But actually with blockchain, you can protect them, you can make the data more neutral, so it will not just controlled by the large organizations.
So for me, maybe it's not, I don't know whether it's going to be contrary opinion, it's more like a wild prediction. So it's not even about the next wave, but let's say in 5 years. I think right now we are a bit in the midst of kind of like a layer 1 wars, or maybe not wars, but like crazy competition. So I think in 5 years it may be the case that the regular users will not even care about which layer 1 they are using, but rather which interchain operator they are using. So things like very general bridges will become very popular. I mean, they are already pretty popular, I think, but they become even more popular. And I think the metaphor I'd like to use here is that, for example, Uber doesn't host their own server. They are using cloud infrastructure. And I don't even know whether it's AWS or Azure or something different. And I don't care, frankly. No one cares. I mean, like, it works. I just want my features. I don't care where are the servers. So it's going to be, I think, a bit the same or a bit similar in blockchains. I mean, users will want their features. We already have the tokens which exist on majority of popular chains. So people will want to trade these tokens, or they will want to use these tokens to invest in something. They will not care much about which infrastructure is it actually happening on. So I think, like, from this perspective, it's gonna become more and more important for chains to offer novel features which are not offered by the other chains, because this will be the way to stand out, rather than having the same as everyone else, but a slightly tiny bit better.
Yeah, so I'm just going to echo what was said on the panel. I think that when you look at Netflix, what they don't say, it's a containerized application running in the cloud, efficiently dealing with hot and cold data. And if you look at every Web3 application right now, you have these, it's slapped on the front page, like I said, like permissionless, and even get paid in crypto. And I think that that's a bit like also an unpopular opinion, but I think that when you say these words and you come to a Web3 conference, it resonates with a lot of us. When you say, "Oh wow, permissionless, and you're doing a great job," but I think that maybe a controversial opinion, but what I'm excited for is that people start, and it is wildly on the non-technical side, but they start to tell the value proposition, and they start to tell the story. It's like, hey, for instance, one of the projects I'm bullish on, shout out to OpenQ, and what they do is they make sure that developers that already contribute to open source get paid now. So one of the things they should do is on their front page is do work, get paid, and then that's the way you should position yourself. So I think the way we start positioning ourselves. It needs to be different. I also think it's going to be difficult because we kind of don't want to. We want it to be adopted by the mass world, but we don't want to let go of our culture and the way we talk and the way we roll, because it's kind of how we got together and what we love about each other. But yeah, I think that's my 2 cents on that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of contrarian we can take away with. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to the Info panel. Hope this is helpful to all of you.